Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So our agenda tonight, we'll go around and introduce each other and establish a quorum. Secondly, we'll review and approve the minutes from our prior meeting. Third item on the agenda, which is the centerpiece of the whole meeting, is to go through the draft report. Then the fourth item is any other business, and we do have some other business to attend to. And then the fifth item is a motion to adjourn. The way that we'll run this call is similar to other calls where the commissioners have full audio and video privileges, can speak and broadcast themselves at any time. And then at the appropriate portions of the agenda, we'll invite the public in and we'll ask the public to make their interest, if they want to speak, to make their interest known by going to the chat or to the question and answer tab. And Greg will monitor those and will admit people on a case-by-case basis from the chat room and thereby give them video and audio privileges on a case-by-case basis. Does that sound okay to folks?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we just go around and do introductions and establish a quorum. This is Bill Kilmartin from Newburyport. Jeff?
Jeff Clements, Cambridge.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Clyburn Crawford, Boston.
Jay?
Jay Marsden, Halston.
Novell?
Noble Alexander from Framingham.
Matthew?
Matthew McKnight, Boston.
Thank you, Scott.
Scott McDermott, Medfield.
Bopha?
Bopha Malone, Bedford.
Thank you. Any other commissioners on the line? I don't see any. Okay, so we have a quorum, and perhaps others will join us as we go. Second item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes. Jeff, you want to share your screen?
Yeah, it looks like somebody's joining us.
I see Dominic has joined. Welcome, Dominic. And I see Carmen has joined. Welcome, Carmen.
Hi.
We just established introductions in a quorum. So, Carmen, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Carmen Gentile from Sudbury, Massachusetts.
Thank you. And Dominic?
Hi, this is Dominic Pagallo from Salem.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a quorum, and we're now going to proceed to a review and discussion and a vote on the minutes from the previous call.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, so we have the minutes now in front of us. Any discussion? Okay, are we ready for a vote? Okay, hearing no objection, I'll call the roll. So Bill, I vote yes. Jeff?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Jay?
Yes.
Novo?
Aye.
Matthew?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Bopha?
Aye.
Dominic?
Aye.
Carmine?
Yes.
And I think that, did Costas join?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Hi, Costas. So we just review and approve the minutes. How do you vote, Costas?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. So let's move next to a review of the report. And my suggestion is that we go through page by page. And that Jeff will show us each page on the screen. And we'll invite any particular comments, suggestions, edits, any other commentary as we go, and see if we can't work our way through the entire document. Is that agreeable to folks?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so Jeff, you want to queue up the document?
It's coming right up.
So the structure of this document is relatively straightforward. We have an introduction, then there's a discussion about our Section 3 requirements. There's a discussion about our Section 5 requirements, and then there's a closing.
I do want to point out for members of the public in the public drive, which Sam Feldman has graciously shared in the chat, this is version 4, which replaced an earlier version 2. So we're working from version 4.
And the salient difference there is that what I'd characterize as cosmetic edits. In the previous version, there were different font sizes and things of that nature. Plus also, we've got some inserted comments here where we want to specifically pause and entertain more robust debate and discussion. So what we're looking at here is the first page of the, well, why don't you back up? Same cover as we had before. We probably want to change the date. Any other suggestions on the cover?
Looks good.
How about if we just change the date to like July of 2020? Does that sound all right? Okay, here, no objection.
Stop spot for July 4th, July 4th, 2020.
Absolutely.
What a year. Yeah, okay, so let's move to what would be page 1. So this is the beginning of the introduction. And why don't you scroll to the bottom of this page, Jeff? There we go. Any comment, suggestions, edits on page 1? Okay, hearing nothing, let's move on. Page 2, or well, that was page 2, so page 3. This is a continuation of the introduction. And you've seen this before. Any comments, suggestions, edits on page 3? Okay, hearing nothing, let's move on. Page 4.
Hey, Bill, is this the version that has the comments in it that I sent around to the group?
Yes, it does. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be coming to those.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't miss my own comments because
Yeah, I just copied them in, Matthew, so you'll see them in the place where they arise.
Hey, Bill?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, before we go too much further past the beginning, Greg has raised an interesting point on an executive summary, which we did in the first report, and I think would be useful to add when we're done, a short executive summary to give the sort of overview and the conclusions.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I agree as well. Is anybody opposed to an executive summary?
No.
Are we inclined to, like 1 page or less?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
A couple of paragraphs at most.
Anybody want to volunteer to ghostwrite the executive summary?
I'd be happy to do that, Bill.
Thank you, Costas. And I would imagine would stick that after the cover and before the introduction, so right up front. And Greg had sent an email with some specific suggestions, Costas. I think you have a copy of that, so you might want to refer to that as you draft the executive summary.
Yes, and I thought it was good for motivation, although some of the historical detail I might have to exclude in the interest of space, but I did like it a lot. So thanks very much, Greg.
Yeah, it's cool. Anything else on page 3? Ready to move to page 4? Hearing no objection, let's move to page 4. This is just the continuation and conclusion of the introductory section. Any questions, comments, or edits on page 4? Okay, let's go to page, yep.
I'm not sure if it goes here, but I think it would be helpful either to attach in some manner the first report as an appendix to this one, so they kind of go together, and a link so that those who have seen it online can immediately go and see, because we obviously are referring to discussions we did there that some people may well see only this one. And we want to make it super easy for them to just pick up the first one at the same time.
Would you prefer an attachment as in the appendix? A hyperlink is another option. We could do both. What's your preference there?
I think a hyperlink will be fine for those people looking at this online.
Which I think most people probably would be now.
Excuse me, this is, Bill, just a quick question. There are a couple of people who've raised their hands with questions. Do you want to occasionally stop rather than waiting until the very end?
I think I'd prefer to wait to the end. I want to get through the entire document with the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Are the commissioners good with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to, in the appendix, attach a hyperlink to the first report. I'll make that edit and include that in this introductory section. Anything else here on page 5?
That's actually page 4, Bill.
Page 4, yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, so that concludes the introductory section. Let's go to page 5. So this is the beginning of the next section, which is the scope and the language for one or more constitutional amendment resolutions. This is now page 5. So let's scroll down and see if we have any suggestions, edits, comments on page 5. I'll just remind folks that a lot of this we had already reviewed and approved in our first report, and is just repeated here for context. Any suggestions from the commissioners, edits, comments on page 5? Hearing none, let us go to page 6. This is a continuation of the same section. Okay, so we'll scroll down a bit, Jeff. Any commissioners have any comments, questions, or edits to page 6? Hearing none, let's move on to page 7. Continuation of this section. You scroll down a little bit, Jeff. Commissioners have any questions, comments, or edits on page 7? Okay, hearing none, let's move to page 8. If you scroll down a little bit, Jeff. Yeah, so let's pause here on the American Free Enterprise Club's Freedom Act. Matthew, you had provided this input in, in your prior review. So let's pause and discuss this and come to a conclusion. Matthew, can I ask you to expand a little bit upon, your note, by the way, is highlighted in yellow. I just copied it in here to refresh your memory.
Yeah, mine's really simple. I don't have an objection or a support for this, and I'm sure maybe I didn't make this clear. It quite possibly could have been discussed. I just had no idea like everything else I read in this had been written somewhere and I remembered it or we had discussed it. I just felt like this was, a hanging sentence that it was very directive, very strong, and I didn't know what it meant. And I don't particularly remember the discussion. And so I just wanted to be careful that I deeply appreciate people making the effort to put this document together, and I deeply understand that whoever, different people writing it will pull things from different places. I just had, of the whole document, I had a reaction to this sentence as something I didn't feel like was discussed.
I'm going to ask, the rest of the commissioners to check my memory on this, but I recall Jennifer Taub, Professor Taub, commenting on this Arizona Free Enterprise case, and I recall that as she was in a working group of Nicholas Bowie, but my memory's not exact in this matter. So I'm wondering if anybody else has a recollection.
Well, I'm wondering, Bill, if it was referred to as the McCutcheon case at the time, which is the companion case that basically, focused on the same issue. Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't recall it.
Yeah, maybe if I might, we discussed an awful lot, and we discussed a lot of these cases and stuff, but I don't really think it's necessary for us to say the line the commission believes a proposed amendment, et cetera, because I think the context of all of these cases is what we're trying to do is give the states, the people, more flexibility in crafting rules. And I think that was meant with reference to that particular case, but there's no reason to say it with reference to that particular case, which involved a public financing approach that Arizona was trying to make work that got struck down. I think the thing that was discussed was the aspect of federalism, which ended up in the section 1 of the recommended amendment because of cases like this, where the states have been trying things and getting bollocksed up because of the jurisprudence we're trying to change. But it could be like whoa, are we endorsing public funding of elections or something? I didn't know that. And so I would suggest we just taking Matt's sort of cue that if it surprises him, it might surprise others, and we don't really need it. So I don't know what others think, but I'd suggest we just stop at the end of the quote, because these are describing cases that, the description of the case would still be there.
So we could stop at the end of the quote, and the sentence that's highlighted in blue would disappear. Is that the suggestion, John?
That's my suggestion, my idea. I don't feel strongly one way or the other, but if that addresses Matt's concern, I think it would be
I think it's a good idea.
Fine.
Yeah. What other commissioners think?
It's fine
I'd
with
second
me.
that. If that were a motion, I'd second it. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the draft, delete the sentence. Who made the motion?
I guess I did.
Okay, second?
I think Matt did.
Matt, any further discussion on this matter?
This is the
Okay, so
blue,
let's
section
vote.
in blue.
We're going to delete the sentence in the blue, yeah?
Got it.
So Bill votes yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Naval?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bopha?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Carmen?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make that change in the next version. It'll be version 5 of the report. Anything else on any other comments, questions, or edits from the commissioners in regards to page 8? Hearing none, let's go to page 9. Continuation of this. Let's scroll down, Jeff. Okay, so let's pause there. Commissioners have any questions, comments, or edits in regards to page 9? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to page 10. So we're going to have some more comments here. Now, if you scroll down just a little bit, Matthew, I'm going to ask you to elaborate here. Again, I cut and pasted from your feedback earlier just to put this in front of us. And so there's 3 points that you were making in regards to this section, all of which I think have merit. So I would ask you perhaps to elaborate a little bit the nature of your thinking, and then we have a discussion and a vote on this.
Let me, can I have 30 seconds to refamiliarize myself with those words that I wrote?
Absolutely. You can have as much time as you want.
On the first two are related, and then the third one I think is separate. And I just wanted to propose for discussion whether we wanted to include, because I think whether we wanted to include some discussion of the keywords that we debated, right? And I do that because I deeply respect the feedback that we've. I say that because I deeply respect the feedback that we've received from the community and from people in the Commonwealth, both critical of decisions we've made and challenging us to look at them differently. And I know I'm also thoughtful that this group has put a lot of effort into trying to do what is right by the law that was passed and the mandate that we were asked to support. And I am cognizant that we live in a messy democracy and nothing is going to be perfect for everybody by definition. And I was really, I was proud of the debate and discussion that we had and the flexibility different people showed in this group. Perhaps an example, both of the community participating in this group, trying to come to a good solution and changing opinions. And I thought that these were reasons, some reasons, they were not the only reasons why we came to some changes to the language that we did. These were things that I wrote down that were, I thought, important, that were top of mind, but I don't mean them to be exhaustive, 1 and 2 in particular. And I thought it was worthy of us just considering a short discussion of some of the key decisions that we made, key choices that we made. I think probably most eloquently articulated in different places by Jeff, but lots of people had input into this conversation. That's 1 and 2. And then 3, this is one, unfortunately, and I'll just state it for the record. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get good feedback from Nico, but something he had raised a lot of concern about, number 3, which is there's a lot of things that we want to address that are relevant to the simple fact that natural persons have the rights under our Constitution and not any entities created by the states, a word that I've learned through this process, juridical persons. That said, there are real human and economic consequences that we would not like to see to broad statements on this topic. And I realize there's strong feelings about this across the country and across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But our law is based in common law and it builds on itself. And I don't necessarily feel incredibly comfortable advocating massive change that has unintended consequences beyond what our intended purpose is, primarily around equitable and fair elections. But I understand the debate about artificial entities going further than that. So that third point is really just to raise continued concern. I think I'm comfortable with the way where we've ended, but it is not it is not without very valid debate whether that Second Amendment is, or whichever First or Second Amendment is, still has big questions to be asked about it by us and others in the future. We are not drafting the actual constitutional amendment right now that's going to be approved. We hope this will be one, but I think flagging the concerns is important.
Thank you, Matt. And so when I read your comments, I was interpreting this as a recommendation that we include in our narrative a couple sentences or paragraph to explain, why we included the word reasonable, to explain the rationale of why we included the word in, and to describe a little bit more the nature of the debate and how we ended up in regards to the Second Amendment. So did I understand correctly that's your intent, is add some explanation?
Yes, it's not a proposal to change what we've agreed and voted on. It is a proposal to add some discussion for the sake of other people coming to this later around things that we spent a lot of time trying to think through and are not going to be perfect on.
So I personally think that's a very meritorious idea, and we should do that. What do other commissioners think?
I agree.
Yep.
I mean, would it be possible to have a motion to
Hey, Bill, before we
designate
jump
a
in on
person
that,
to write the
quick,
paragraphs?
hey, Bill, quick question. Is this type of commentary something that might be better placed in the executive summary?
Good point. Or perhaps both places, maybe a short reference in the executive summary and a paragraph here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty granular for the executive summary, but it's worth a reference maybe. But
Yeah.
this is probably a better place for a detailed explanation of why these words are in here.
I just didn't know if it changed the flow, if you made some reference to, the executive summary here, and actually, because of its granularity, that's why I thought maybe it was better placed in the executive summary. But just a suggestion. I'm not wedded to the idea. I just wanted to put it out there.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts or opinions from the commissioners? Is it possible that we could have a motion to designate somebody to write the relevant paragraphs to execute the intent of what Matthew has captured here?
I motion to designate somebody to requisition a volunteer.
If we designate you, Matt, would you?
I am happy to draft it. I've done 75% without wordsmithing here. I did not mean for this to be an exhaustive. I do want other, but I don't necessarily mean to be the only one. I know there are a lot of thoughts on this. So two ways to do it. I can turn this into more prose-like language. It's not far away with some massaging, or somebody can take this and put another person's perspective on it, and then we can all look at that. So it's not just coming from me. I'm comfortable with either way. I don't think there's a strong reason to do either.
Or if you don't object, then I'd like to make a motion that Matt, be designated to ghostwrite the relevant paragraphs. Any objection?
I second.
Okay. So we have a second. Discussion?
Matt, I'd be happy to take a look too, and just
I'd appreciate that, Jeff.
If you take the first cut at it, I'd be
Yeah,
happy to give you any feedback. Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
Any further discussion on the motion that has been made and seconded? We're ready for a vote? Bill votes yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Novell?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bopha?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Carmen?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. Any other commissioners have any other comments, questions, edits on page 10?
Just there's a question for those following along and among the public about what the word "in" is referring to, and it's in elections. It was a key word to make sure we're addressing money in elections, not having it stretch beyond that scope, as Matt, I think, tries to explain there. So that's all. Thanks.
Excellent. So hearing no further comment, let's move to page 11. And this just continues and finishes this section with the specific language. So let me pause here. Commissioners have any questions, edits, or comments on page 11? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to page 12. So this is another section. Now we're going to focus on section 5 of our mission, specifically the recommendations for actions to be taken. And you've seen this before in PowerPoint format, and now you're looking at it in narrative text. So page 12. Jeff, is this, see the leverage multiple paths?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is this language the language that we want? I'm referring to some of the earlier conversations and email feedback and input. Work through Congress, support a limited purpose Article 5 convention, invest in building. I'm up there on page 12.
Yeah, just.
Sorry, you guys.
It's me. I ran out of battery on my iPad.
Okay, so Bill, you're asking about under leverage multiple paths, support a limited purpose Article 5 convention. And there was a comment from Ulysses by email that was, I think, actually helpful for an amendment here. And I wonder, with the chair's permission, if Greg could just let Ulysses phrase that, if you don't mind, Ulysses, so that we can get the language right. But I think we thought it was a good point. Hello,
Okay,
Ulysses.
so let's do that. And I also want to let folks know that a similar point is going to arise later in the text in slightly more detail. But you know, the point here is we want to get the verbiage correct. I think we all understand the intent. It's a matter of, are we expressing that intent in the most appropriate way? So is it best now to ask Ulysses to weigh in?
Yeah, I think so. Ulysses, could you say how you suggested this be edited?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think so.
Okay, can you hear me any better now? I'm a little
That's
closer to
good.
the microphone.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you, Ulysses.
You're referring to the point with supporting a limited purpose Article 5 convention. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah, my point that I was making was merely that Article 5, and this is a quotation from Article 5 of the Constitution, is that the amendment proposing convention is done, quote, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states. So I thought it was a little bit misleading for point 2 there to say that Massachusetts, actually it looks like you may have changed the words. Okay, you have changed the words since the last time I read it. So this is a little more accurate. You had said previously, ask Congress to form an amendment proposing convention, and that's what I was objecting to. So I think this is a lot closer to it. But since the states individually call for the convention, phrasing it as, yeah, Massachusetts as a state would be one of the several states, quote unquote, applying, the Massachusetts legislature would apply for a amendment proposing convention. So yeah, this is pretty close, I guess, to what it would need to say. And you say limited purpose, and that was my other objection, was that you had said amendment proposing convention. But I think this basically gets very close to what I would say myself.
Yeah, and Ulysses, I think the point you want to make is actually going to arise later in the text. So this reference here is rather, it's not specific, okay? It just says a limited purpose Article 5 without getting into the details of whether that's by petition of the states or directly by Congress, which I think is the point that you want to get to, which arises later in the text. Do I understand that correctly?
On page 13. Page 13 is the page that I was particularly commenting on. So I'd be fine with yielding the floor again until that comes up, or we could just talk about it right now.
So right here. So rather than calling for the U.S. Congress, I'm calling for, Ulysses, you have a specific recommendation on page 13, second bullet. I agree with you on your analysis that it's better to correct that.
So send a letter to the 5 Massachusetts appointing authorities supporting enactment of H3 208 S2163, and here's where the edit comes in, asking the states to apply for a limited amendment proposing convention.
Okay.
Because Congress itself only does it on the application of the states acting first.
Got it. Okay. So Bill, if it's okay with you in the commission, I can just write that up if you didn't catch it, and insert and send it to you for inserting. But maybe you got it.
Okay, so I think that's a motion to amend on page 13. The phrase as currently constructed says calling for the U.S. Congress to form a limited amendment proposing convention, and to replace that with the wording that that you just talked about, upon application of the states, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a motion to make that change? Jeff, are you making that motion?
Sure, yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Further discussion amongst the commissioners? All right, let's take a vote. Bill votes yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yay.
Jay?
Yes.
Naval?
Yes.
Thank you. Matthew?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bopha?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Carmen?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Okay, my note says that Jeff will take the lead in drafting that edit. So we're on page 12. I want to double check now. I'll cycle back to page 12 and ask if the commissioners had any additional comments, questions, or edits on page 12, and then we'll go back to page 13.
So Bill, I think it's Costas. I think I'm looking strategy for 28th Amendment, since we're actually proposing 2 amendments. Should we say 28th and, or more amendments, or 28th and 29th Amendment, or just leave it at, campaign for amendments? Conceivably, we could be talking about more than the 28th Amendment, right?
Can you just say the proposed amendment? Amendments? Proposed amendments.
Proposed amendments.
Yeah, I think that's good, Costas. I think that's a good catch. Yeah, proposed. So instead of the words, the 28th Amendment would be the proposed amendments.
That's right. And that might just be a friendly amendment to this language.
Yeah. Is that in the form of a motion?
If necessary, yes.
Yeah, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Bill votes yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Naval?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bopha?
Yes.
Dominic,
Yes.
Carmine,
Yes.
Costas.
Yes.
Okay, good catch. The commissioners have, and I took the note, Costas, I'll just make the edit myself in the next version. The commissioners have any other comments, questions, or edits on page 12? Okay, hearing none, let's go to page 13. We've already approved, discussed and approved one change to page 13, and Jeff's going to take the lead on that. So take a few minutes and look at the rest of page 13. And I will ask if the commissioners have any suggested edits, changes, questions, comments. Okay, hearing none, let's go to page 14. So this is a continuation of our response to section 5 of the law.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
So I just want to make a suggestion. It's come up on this page, but it's come up on a few others where many eyes help with just typos or stylistic things. So there's a comment on the word here, undertaken instead of undertaking and things like that. I would suggest perhaps a motion that maybe, Greg can save all the chat and we can just pick up those kind of comments and do, and basically it's, just wordsmithing for just errors that people catch, and suggest that we just authorize you to make those changes as they affect style or just, typos. Just so we don't have to go through one at a time, and we don't have to have the public who is helpfully catching some of those to have to say them all in public comment.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Greg, can you do that? Just save the chat and send it before we sign off and lose it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Well, as long as none of that affects any substantive aspects, right? So purely for typographical, grammatical, and other kind of cosmetic reasons, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're ready for a vote. Bill will vote yes. Jeff?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Naval?
Yes.
Matthew?
Aye.
Scott?
Yes.
Bopha?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Carmen?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, because inevitably, no matter how many times one tries, you find a few bugs and defects in the grammar. So happy to make those edits. Many hands make for a light work. Any other comments and questions or concerns about page 14? Okay, hearing none, let's move to page 15. We're now moving into the closing. This would be the conclusion of the report and then the appendix. And as we've talked about, the appendix would have the existing attachment, which is the commission members, and then the second, which would be a hyperlink to the first report.
Sorry, Bill, this is Dominic. I didn't unmute fast enough. Can we jump back to 14 for just one quick second?
Yes, we may, yes.
In the longer term bullet points at the very bottom regarding engaging the public, could we change the word call for the call for citizens in Massachusetts to call for residents? I think generally the reference to citizens is fine for the rest of the report, but in this one instance, I'd like it just to be I think maybe a little bit more inclusive of people who may be residents, but not necessarily citizens. because they're also, I think, affected by the outcome of these amendments.
So is that a motion, Dominic, to change the word citizens to the word residents?
Yes, in this one sentence.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Ready for a vote? Bill votes yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Novell?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bopha?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Carmine?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll just make that change on behalf of the commission. Thank you for that, Dominic. We're ready to move on to page 15. Here, no objection. Let's move to page 15. Give folks a moment to focus on this. Do we have any proposed, and do the commissioners have any comments, questions, or edits in regards to page 15? Okay, I believe we are concluded, and we have walked through the document. We've got the 2 items that will appear in the appendix. I'll recap, my notes in an email. But just quickly, just to wrap this up, we're going to take this version that we've reviewed, and Costas is going to give us an executive summary. And Costas, I'd ask you to forward that to me, and I'll merge it into the rest of the document. Bill is going to attach the hyperlink to the first report as an appendix item. Matthew is going to ghostwrite the 3 paragraphs in regards to the 3 narratives related to page 10. Bill is going to make an edit on page 12, replacing the 28th Amendment with proposed amendments. Jeff is going to make the edits on page 13 about the Article 5 convention process. Bill is going to be authorized to make stylistic or typographical type edits that will have been noticed in the chat box throughout the text of the document. And that's it. So we are very, very close to conclusion.
And you
I
got
need to,
Bill, do we need a vote and a motion to approve, to adopt the complete report?
yeah, so that's what I was going to ask next, Costas, is, there's going to be another version, with, the things that we just mentioned. Do we feel that we need, another call to review and vote upon the final version? Or do, what's your thinking? What do you think, Costas?
I don't think that that's necessary. If we agree on, I mean, we've taken motions and votes on most of the changes. The rest of it will be cosmetic, except for the executive summary, which we can circulate and, maybe get that through without a formal vote. I think we should be okay.
And we just take the vote tonight, and the understanding would be that we're done, and that we would then be in a position to talk about distributing the report and maybe a press release and things of that nature.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Other commissioners have a thought in this matter?
I'd like, we have some hands up and public comment. I think depending on what, if we get substantive issues raised that perhaps we hadn't thought of, I might prefer personally to reserve judgment on this particular issue until after that, but otherwise I'm inclined to concur.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested in seeing the edits that Matt is going to be making as well. Not necessarily that we have to vote on them, but just an opportunity to review that language.
Good.
I think
Yeah.
I think that is probably the only real substantive addition, which Jeff and I can work on and get Jeff's feedback on. But I agree that that will be the only substantive thing, it sounds like.
Good, so let's turn it now to the portion of the agenda where we invite in public comment and testimony. And we would do this in the mechanism similar to prior calls, where we'd ask we'd ask Greg to tell us who's in the waiting room and has raised their hand. And we'll recognize that person, ask them to take not more than 2 minutes to make their suggested point. And then we'll move on. So let us do that now. Greg, how many people do we have that have raised their hand?
Well, more always come in, but currently there are 6.
Okay. So who's first?
The first is Barry.
We recognize Barry. Barry, you want to introduce yourself, and you have the floor.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, okay. I'm Barry Rosenberg, Westford, Massachusetts. The overwhelming feedback at the meetings that I and my constituents have been at has been that we would like a single amendment instead of 2. And at the very least, it would be nice if that was one of the strategies rather than footnotes. My second point is constitutional rights. In Chapter 322 is listed as the first leg that ought to be dealt with. And limiting constitutional rights to real people will be very important in enforcing the Second Amendment if you're still going to have 2 amendments. So it ought to precede it.
Thank you. The commissioners have any questions or comments for Barry? Okay, then let's move on. Greg, who's next?
The next one is Ulysses.
You recognize Ulysses.
Ulysses Latiner, Somerville. Actually, I was going to say that I think regarding Barry's point about the public's preference for 1 amendment, I noticed actually on one of the earlier pages, you seem to have made a modification where you've made clear that the public did prefer 1 amendment, but you're still recommending 2. I think I saw that at the top of this version, and if so, I really appreciate you adding that to make clear that although the commission is recommending 2 amendments, there's definitely public support for 1 amendment, because I think that'll be good in terms of setting the future course. But the main thing I wanted to comment on was I actually feel kind of guilty. I think that the comment in which you invited me to comment on a couple minutes ago about the Article 5 convention, I had been commenting on the first version of your report, and it looks like the particular passage that I was criticizing in my comment doesn't exist at all anymore. So I'm wondering, can you go back to the section, because I wouldn't want you to make any changes that in fact I'm not actually even suggesting anymore. In version 1, you had a table that listed a number of actions to be taken, and it looks like that no such table still exists in here, and it's all part of the text now. I'm wondering if that's Jeff's screen, could he do a search for the number for appearances of the word convention? Because I think it might be that the point I was making is no longer necessary to make.
Oh, yeah, because we did make updates from the prior. This is version 4. You were probably looking at version 2.
So how many instances of the word convention are in here?
This is it.
So that's 3 or 2?
I see just 2. So if I do this, it just goes around again as a summary.
So the first instance. Show me that again. Okay, leverage support a limited Article 5 convention. Right. That's okay. Yeah, that's consistent with what I was saying. Massachusetts support, and then the near-term action. Okay, I think what you have written now actually does seem accurate because the H3208 is calling for U.S. Congress to form a limited amendment proposing convention. So I don't know, maybe the commissioners want to discuss this amongst themselves better, but the particular passage that I was objecting to does not exist in this version of the report at all. And I wouldn't want you all to make a change based on a point that I was making that doesn't really seem to be reflected anymore in this version.
Thank
Oh,
you,
good.
Ulysses. I think it got addressed earlier when because you had it by email. I think Bill caught it and did it. I don't think we need another motion. I have that assignment to send you any language on that point, Bill, and so maybe I'll just send you very short language, right? Like it looks good.
Yeah, okay. And this,
Okay.
by the way, I think
I'll
it's the
take
third
one more
instance of
look
the
at
word convention on the next page.
Yeah,
I guess not. Okay.
I think that's it. Yeah. I think
Okay. Thank you, Ulysses. Greg, who's next?
Sam Fieldman.
We recognize Sam.
Thank you. So there's a couple of minor points that I put into the questions, which you can read there. More important than that I put into the questions also is I want to know who's writing the letter regarding the We the People Act. My first instinct would be that Carmine would be a likely person since he's the primary sponsor of it. But I'm just curious who's doing that, and I would love to work with whoever is doing that because my organization, as well as We the People of Massachusetts, have been the organizations that have been primarily responsible for pushing that from the public side.
Yeah. So Sam, in that regard, let me just say that under the agenda item called Other Business, I have listed the letter on House Bill 3208, the status of our legislation, the meeting with Senator Tarr,
Great.
the meeting with
So we'll
DeLeo,
get to
the
that.
meeting with Gallo, the meeting with Bradley. So we do have room in the agenda for that topic. It comes later.
Okay, great. Then the only other points I've raised before, I've never heard any discussion of the idea of having a spokesperson. I think that would be enormously helpful, especially since you don't know whether or not the second commission will be passed into law. So I think establishing one or multiple or 10, it doesn't really matter how many, but somebody who has the actual authority to speak for this commission once it disbands will be enormously helpful for your ability to carry on your goals as you go forward, especially if the second commission does not end up being formed, which hopefully it will, but in case it doesn't. And then also I just want to renew my disappointment that lobbying is not addressed in the First Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have questions for Sam? Okay, let's move on. Greg, who's next?
Next is Michael Bleiweiss.
We recognize Michael. Michael, you're on.
Okay, I am Michael Bleiweiss from Methuen, Massachusetts. I submitted some written comments regarding this report, but the draft I had access to had different pagination than the one we're looking at now. But I'll start by saying that they're looking at the table on page 3, where you list the, if you will, the key issues around campaign financing. No, keep going. Yes, I'm sorry, you don't see me pointing at the screen. The middle box, middle section. I'm very disappointed that it makes no reference to corporate constitutional rights, but only to campaign spending. Because corporate constitutional rights is just as big a problem, and the whole issue around campaign spending circles back on the Supreme Court granting First Amendment rights to money. So it would be nice if that contained some examples of abuses of corporate constitutional rights as well. Now, where I think my comments might have been a little confusing is down on the chart on page 12. I thought it was, in my copy, it was page 17. It threw me for a loop. And when you reread my comments, you should substitute actually, I thought it was on 12. Maybe it's Did you remove the table that listed the steps and replace it with just straight text as Ulysses?
That's correct. Yes,
Yeah.
Michael, we did,
So,
yeah.
so it's this on page 13 in the third item. No, scroll down a little bit further. Which was the one about Congress passing the amendment and the states asking for an Article 5 amendment. I thought I saw it on page 12, but maybe I'm still off on the pages. There. No, where'd it go? I was just looking at it. Sorry to be so scattered. Like I said, but basically what you had in the item was to ask around asking Congress to form a constitutional convention and asking the states to petition Congress. And what my remarks said was that we should pressure Congress to pass the amendment directly. And at the same time, we should have the states passing resolutions demanding that Congress pass the amendment, or the states would hold a limited Article 5 convention to force Congress to pass it. Like I said,
I hear you, Michael. I think we've got that covered in version 4.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And if you circle back to my comments, just substitute the correct page number for it.
Thank you. The commissioners have any other questions or comments for Michael? Okay, let's move on. Greg, how many more do we have in the waiting room?
4 more.
All right, who's next?
Mike Hanauer.
We recognize Mike.
First of all, thank you to you all for the wonderful work you're doing. I had 2 questions, and they may just reflect my ignorance on keeping up with what's happening. But one is, I was wondering if you can briefly tell me or send me the information on this 2 amendment approach, that one I wasn't aware of. And the other question I had was, I just feel very strongly that we should make sure that not a person includes religions.
I'm not sure if I get your second point there, Mike.
Are you referring, Mike, to the second amendment, number 2, the rights of natural persons only?
Yes.
It's just on the screen now.
Yeah, and that's related to an email I sent to you, Jeff, maybe a month ago.
Okay.
But religions tend to be an exception, you know, to so many because, well, God is behind them.
Yeah, no, Mike, I think we got your comment. I think there was a reluctance to, you know, go beyond the First Amendment's already existing, you know, words about both separation of church and state and also freedom of religion, and did not see it as something we were competent or charged with getting into that. That's just speaking for myself, but.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just guessing there's just one chance to get this right.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Do the commissioners have any comments or questions for Mike Hanauer? Okay, let's move on. Greg, who's next?
There are 4 more people. The next one is Jack Dean.
We recognize Jack.
Hello. Yeah, I made a mistake. I was thinking that on page 14, you had omitted supporting enactment of H 3208 and S 2163. but as we're scrolling back through, it is there. So I don't have any other comment.
Good. Okay, thank you. Who's next?
The next one is Paul Lowenstein.
We recognize Paul.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to remind or thank the commission for endorsing the We the People Act in the Massachusetts legislature. As you probably know, we're nearing the end of our third two-year session for this bill without a vote. And I hope in speaking with Speaker DeLeo and Senate President Spilka that the commissioners will remind them that it would be ironic and extremely disappointing if the legislature of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts declines to vote on a bill to propose an amendment to improve our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Do the commissioners have any questions or comments for Paul? Because we will be talking about this a bit more later in the agenda. Thank you. Who's next?
The next one is Matt Victor.
We recognize Matt.
Hi. First, thanks to the commissioners. I really appreciate all the work that you guys have done. I have reached out to several of you. I'm a BC law student. I'm starting an organization at BC that is trying to sort of form a community to discuss bipartisan issues, and tackling campaign finance reform is one of our first projects. I would say our first and main project. And so I just wanted to I guess put a voice to the name that some of you guys may have seen, and ask your assistance and advice as I continue to put together panels and organize from the BC and Boston academic community. We will need speakers, panelists, and advice going forward. So, anything that you might be willing to offer would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Matt. We are kindred spirits in this matter. The commissioners have questions or comments for Matt?
I agree with what Bill just said. And hello, Matt. Good to have a voice associated with the emails. And we certainly look forward to working with you and appreciate your efforts to amplify what this commission is doing.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move ahead. Greg, who's next?
The last person is Peter Hornbeck.
We recognize Peter.
Yes, hello. Peter Hornbeck from Gloucester, Massachusetts. I had simply a comment to make on the proposition that Amendment 2 should be appended into Amendment number 1. I totally agree that Amendment number 2 is critically important, but I am concerned about the possibility of that being an overbearing burden to put upon Amendment number 1, which is in fact what we really want to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Do the commissioners have questions or comments for Peter? Okay, is that anybody else, Greg, in the waiting room?
No, there's not.
Okay, so Costas, I want to go back to the point you raised earlier about a motion to be authorized to accept the amendments and thereby accept the report, or whether there was going to be a need for another meeting of the commission to review the report once more. I think that was the gist of it. I'd go back to you, Costas, and ask you to perhaps rephrase what I just attempted to rephrase in a more eloquent way. And if you care to make that in the form of a motion, that would be great.
Costas, I think that was to you.
Costas, you're on mute. Well, does somebody else want to make the motion on the behalf of Costas?
Well, I guess I will if it's the sense of the commission that we, in fact, are ready to accept the report as substantially consistent with the edits that have been suggested today, I would. I'm not sure if there is a sense of the commission yet. I don't feel strongly about it, so if the commission wants another cut at this and to meet again for one last review of it, I'm certainly happy to do that. So I don't want to foreshorten any discussion or resolution of this that needs to happen, but if it is that sense of the commission, I'd be happy to have the minutes reflect the sound motion that we have accepted it. I just looking for
Jeff,
guidance.
I would say, Jeff and Bill, maybe what I would say is we've got one more marginally, probably not very controversial, but marginally substantive section to add. It feels like one more meeting that might be a shortened one that is simply to address that and any final comments and to sign off and vote on the report might be worth doing. And use that as a close, as opposed to trying to.
Matthew, that's where my head is at too. I think we should have one more call. I don't think we necessarily need to go through the report, but I think we should talk about like a press release and other matters. But it seemed to me, and maybe raise a glass of virtual champagne to sort of celebrate the conclusion of the journey. So I was hoping that we could have one more call, but not necessarily to go through the report in detail. Oh,
No, just maybe to raise questions about the specific section, and then do what you just said about the final actions, and raise a glass of your beverage of choice.
I'll make that motion that we have one more meeting to tie up all of our loose ends. Absolutely.
I'll second that. I can second that, Mr. Chair.
Costas, are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. So I think we know what we're doing. So I don't think we need to take any additional action in this matter. Unless there's any objection, I'm going to move to the next agenda item, which is other business. Hearing no objection.
Bill, I'm gonna.
We do have several items. We pause. Yes.
Hey, Bill. Just sorry. This is Matt. I do have a hard stop in 3 minutes. I don't know if we have a quorum without me. If you need me for anything particular, I haven't looked at the list.
No, I don't think. Yeah, we will have one more call, Matt. So if you can just send your stuff in the next couple of days, by the end of the week.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
Wish you well.
And turns out my scheduling has been easy with these meetings because I'm not going anywhere.
Thanks, everybody. So let's turn to the topic of other business, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Let me start off with the first one. It was suggested that we reach out to Senator Tarr, who's the minority leader in the Senate, and offer the senator a briefing similar to what we've done to Senate President Spilker, Attorney General Healy, in the office of Governor Baker. And Senator Tarr has indicated an interest in that. It'll be on July 20th at 5:30 p.m. And myself and Jeff and Noval are all interested in doing that briefing with Senator Tarr. Are there other commissioners that would like to be invited to the phone call? Figure along the lines of 30 to 60 minutes with Senator Tarr. It's July 20th at 5:30 p.m.
So I'd have a meeting from 5 to 6, but I could just end it at 5:30 and go on to that.
Okay.
5:30.
We're going to add you to the invite, Carmine. You'll see a calendar invite. Are there other commissioners like to participate in this call?
I'm
Bill,
sorry.
I have a conflict with that time, but if something changes, I can email you. Do you have a little flexibility?
Yes. Yep. Anybody else? Let us know, because we'll forward the invite to you.
Anybody else on?
What's the date on that again? The date and time, Bill? I'm sorry.
July 20 at 5:30 p.m.
Checking my calendar real quick.
Okay. And Cheryl, you can just send me a note after this call, and if you're interested, for that matter, any other commissioner wants to join this briefing, just let me know and we'll forward you the invite. Moving right along, you know, we've indicated that we want to send a letter of support to House Bill 3208. Carmen, I was looking for some information from you about like the precise status and some advice as to whom we might send it and so forth. Do you have any suggestions as it relates to this commission getting on the record and sending a letter supporting House Bill 3208?
Sure, Bill. I would send the letter to Robert A. DeLeo, Speaker of the House.
Okay.
So the bill was reported favorably the end of September, the end of February 26th or so, by the Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs, and it was sent over to the Steering and Policy Committee, which is the committee which basically shuffled when one committee approves a bill. That's the committee. Steering is the committee that decides what committee it goes to next. And it's been there since the end of February. I have had communications with the chair of that committee, and it's still there. It's not alone. There are a lot of bills that are in suspended animation, if you will. So I think the letter should go to Speaker DeLeo.
Okay, and perhaps, Carmen, if you don't mind, I'd take a crack at ghostwriting a version, and then maybe you and I and some of the other commissioners could take a look at a correspondence before we mail it. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
And would that be okay with the other members of the commission?
Fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Carmen, let me ask you this. We had also talked about filing legislation for, we're nicknaming the Successor Commission.
Yes, so.
Can you give us an update on, would you mind sharing with us your thoughts on that matter?
Well, I recall that the Attorney General had, you had asked if she would have her staff take a look at it and make any suggestions. And then perhaps it was last week that we spoke and you indicated to go forward and file it. So I did file, what we had put together, just made some technical corrections and filed it yesterday. And when I look in laws, which is the legislature's software for all the bills and everything filed, it's there, but it hasn't been assigned a docket number yet. You know, I can, when it has a docket number, I'll send it to you. It should, you know, normally they get a docket number within minutes or an hour or two, but these are strange times.
Yeah, right. Oh, good. So, as they say, the game is afoot.
Right.
Right. Also, under the heading of other business, we've asked Secretary of State Galvin for the opportunity to conduct a call and a briefing and share with them, you know, the direction of the report, and we've not been successful in getting a response. Similar with Representative Speaker DeLeo. Do the other commissioners have any thoughts or advice as it relates to our attempts to get a meeting and conduct a briefing with Secretary Galvin and Speaker DeLeo?
Well, I think we keep trying, Bill. I'm not surprised with Galvin because he was very unresponsive with the vacancy he had to fill. It was like pulling teeth to get his people to let us know if they actually transferred our first report to the appropriate entities. It's been really difficult to have communication with his office. Keep trying, and you know, I think it's the best we could do at this point.
Anybody else have any thoughts or suggestions? Okay, is there any other business we want to bring before the commission?
Bill, going back to Costa says, are there any other channels, back channels to get to this, Secretary of State? Does anybody know any other method?
Well, I'd be happy to try the back channels that I was using through a couple of folks in his office to get clarity on whether our first report was circulated as the law required. So if I can follow up and see if we could triangulate a meeting or at least a response from his office.
Really not talk for all of 19.
Thanks, Costas. Well, do we want to talk about the time for the next call? I think it's going to be a relatively short call. It's going to be accept the report and probably talk about next steps in terms of distributing the report, press release and, media event and, other, as I think Jay said, tying up all the loose ends. What would we think about having another call, let's say a week from today? That would be Tuesday, July 21.
Bill, that week does not work well for me. If it's possible, could we go to the next week after that?
Sure.
Again, if it's not possible, I understand. I'll figure something out. But if it could be Monday or Wednesday, 27th, 29th.
How about Monday, July 27th?
That doesn't work for me, but I could do the Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday, July 28th.
Tuesday's good.
I don't think it was for Jeff, so maybe
Well,
Wednesday.
I have a hard stop at 8, so we'll probably be done by 8. So that's the only thing. I have no hard stop on the Wednesday, but by Tuesday I have to stop at 8.
Yeah, it could probably be a shorter meeting. I imagine in an hour we should be able to wrap up.
Yeah, so Tuesday's fine then if it works for everyone else. We're talking Tuesday, the 28th.
Yep, 6:30.
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah,
it may well be our last meeting of this commission as currently constituted.
Yeah, I'll be camping, so I'll try to chime in, but that's probably gonna be hard where I'm at. So
That's been quite a journey. It'd be cool to have Nova, call in from the campfire.
Well, I think having a quorum is going to be crucial at that meeting, Bill, right? So we want to make sure, since we're taking a vote on the second report, that we have enough people at least for a quorum. And also, if anyone who can't be present, if they have any serious objections, to know about them in advance.
Yep. Yes, agreed. So let's think along the lines of Tuesday, July 28th, 6:30. We'll send notes around to everybody, as Costas just described. And then, if it turns out that we're not going to have a quorum, then we'll find a different time. Good. There's nothing else on the agenda. Is there anything else the commissioners have under the topic of other business? If not, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Hearing none, we are successfully adjourned. Well, thanks everyone. We're getting very close to a logical landing spot here. Not necessarily the end of the process, but I think a logical landing, and it's been quite a journey. So, it's been a pleasure working with you all, and I want you all to continue to enjoy the summer, and look forward to talking at least one more time on July 28th.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for everyone.
Bye.
All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
if I don't see everybody, then good luck, and hopefully I can see everybody down the road somewhere.
Have a good
Thanks, Naval.
camping trip, Naval, and we'll save some champagne for you when you get back.
And I'll save a s'more for you.
All right, got a deal.
Thanks.
Good night, all.
Night.